Welcome YouTube to Pawn Man. My name's Evan Kale and I own a gold and silver business. If you've never seen the show before, it's a reality show about my job. It's an educational program. It's an entertaining program. I have no idea what's gonna walk through my door. It could be a Civil War saber or a Rolex watch. I'll tell you one thing, if the price is right, I'm gonna try and buy it because what's the golden motto? A profit's a profit. So strap in and prepare yourself because this is Pawn Man. What do you got for me today?
Well, lots of stuff.
Okay.
Chinese.
Yep.
And then he bought a whole bunch of these Canadian silver dollars. They're
Okay.
like 0.60, I think.
Yep.
They're like a commemorative thing.
Oh
Seen
yeah.
those before.
Yeah, 5-ounce silver coins, commemorative. Let me take a look and see what's going on here. All right, the Canadian half dollars I'd buy at 13 each. These, the Chinese ones, the market's down. I'd buy these at 25 each. 65, 70, 75,
It's like 80.
80. Let me just check these, make sure they're good. Looks like we got 14.55. Paid to cash. All right, 20 minutes later, he's paid. Yeah, so a lot of people in this business, they just don't want to check. They think the government's watching them. And yeah, the guy thinks the government's watching him. So he only wanted cash, and that's what I had to do to accommodate him. So we just had to make an awkward trip to the bank together. But I paid him off, and now I'm gonna sell this stuff. I bet I'm gonna sell this stuff like almost instantly. These Canadian half dollars, they melt at $14.95 as of today's market. Silver is way down right now, but I bet I can easily get 20 bucks a box on these. So between these, I bet I can get 30 an ounce on these. This 5-ouncer, I gotta look into, but it's Perth from the 70s. This might have a huge premium. I'll make at least 600 bucks on this deal, at least. But the problem is, I am really low on cash right now, like really low. So I just need to fucking sell this stuff and get my money out. I bought way too much silver and the markets went down and people don't want to pay the price that I'm trying to get, which is a very reasonable price, I feel. So right now I'm trying, like, you know, I told you guys I'm operating on like 50,000 and right now I'm down to about 6. I have about $25,000 in metals here for sale. I have that much money tied up in metals right now. So I am a little overly extended. Excuse me. Yes, my sneezes are actually that dramatic. I did not fake that.
This is just metal, silver.
Okay. So 5, 10, 15, 20. Looks like you got 22 ounces here. So we got some sterling.
No, that's the 925. And it's, again, I would.
Yeah, 925 is sterling.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got $48 right here.
Oh.
Some cool stuff. Okay. There's that. So we just made a little mark here. We're gonna test this wire, these little pieces here. And this stuff does make me nervous because it's a little bit harder to tell, but it's also such an insignificant amount that if I am wrong, I'm not gonna go out of business. We'll take 10 karat acid, place it on. We got 15 bucks.
Ew.
I don't really have a way of testing this, so I'm gonna just throw it on my scale and guess. 2 ounces, 40 bucks. Okay, so now we just got the teeth. So I don't know how much gold is in these teeth, these gnarly teeth. It looks like somebody went grave robbing, so the only way to find out is to hit it with a hammer. Drop that on my scale, 3.6 grams. I'd be a buyer of this at 75. Anything else?
That one was separated from my grandma's, all my other grandma, or all of her other coins, so I know she'd like that one a lot.
Yeah, I really like this coin too. I think the design is very interesting. It's, I believe, the only US coin to not feature a number on it. It just features a Roman numeral.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
I don't know how well you can see it because it is so tiny, but it's in very good shape. I don't think I've ever seen one in this good a shape. This is one of those weird coins. They were very unpopular when they were made, and I think they're very cool. In retrospect, I just think the design is so cool on them. Okay.
I do have a few other things. There's those 3.
So what we'll do is pop this open. 14 karat. Let's just test it. I think that's what this is. Oops. This part's not going to be gold, but this is basically what I will buy is the gold value on it.
Oh, gotcha.
So you got 120 bucks in this part. I'd buy all of it at 190.
Okay, I'm gonna probably leave that one together and hold on to it for a little bit.
Okay.
This is great grandmother, probably the 20s, Adams, platinum and iridium.
Elgin watch here. This one's plated.
Okay.
This one's 25 bucks. This is, yeah, this is platinum. I paid 100 bucks on this one.
Okay.
1,028.
Okay.
Okay, so I weighed this. This is fake. This coin that you sold me. It's 23 grams, and it's getting too good of condition to be like that and be 23 grams. It doesn't register on my Sigma. I had another expert look at it. It's a good fake, but it's a fake. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just eat it and don't worry about it because it was my mistake. But whoever sold you that burned you. A Morgan silver dollar is supposed to be 26.73 grams. At most, a gram of silver will wear off of it over its life. 23.8 is too light.
How much is it supposed to weigh?
26.73. So it's 3 grams light.
Well, no, I got this, more than a few years ago.
It is a good fake. The details are good.
So they've been making fake coins all along?
But I know you didn't do it on purpose. Don't sweat it. It's a learning experience for me, and I have something now I can show people and use as a learning tool.
Wow.
So, goddamn, I made a TikTok because, like I said, I'm just so cash poor right now, and my TikTok got like 50,000 hits like that, and I'm just flooded with messages right now. And I've already sold most of the stuff I bought, but it turns out these 2002 China Pandas, I paid him the market price of silver because I would have come up, but I didn't realize how collectible these are. 2002 is like one of the rarest years. I sold this for $600. I paid $225 this morning, and then I bought each of these. That was a good catch. At $13.50, and I'm blowing them out at 21 each on TikTok. I'm almost sold out already. But what I didn't notice was there were 10 of these in that box. And he just said, well, they're all Canadian silver dollars. They're all 0.6 of an ounce. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I didn't look too closely. I got these. And these are not only 1 pure ounce, but they're colorized. They're beautifully toned. They're from 2001. These are going for like 50 bucks each. And I paid $13.50 each. So yeah, I am actually going to make somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 1,200 bucks on that guy. I usually pretend like I do everything, like these episodes are one day, a day in the life of. The reality is I usually stretch it out over a couple days. I'm not even gonna like try to pretend for this one. It's the end of the first day of me filming this episode, and so I had those 2 people come in this morning, and I made a TikTok about it because I ran into a cash problem this morning, and like, fuck, the video I made on TikTok got over 50,000 hits since this morning, and I sold out of everything, and I've been fucking running around like my pants are on fire. Yeah, I have done crazy sales today, but I've been busy nonstop since this morning, and this difficult old guy came in today, and like, it's usually like kind of cute when he comes by. I like to chat with him, and like, yeah, but today it was like, no, I do not have time for you today, bounce. So, just shit. I'm so burnt out, and I still got more. Like, look at this, you guys. That's not even all of it. That giant bucket's full. Most of the packages are tiny. Yeah, I've just been selling stuff like crazy today. So it is 5 o'clock right now, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon because I have more to do. See, the problem is with this, I need a better system. And actually, I did a job interview today. I think I'm gonna be hiring more part-time help. Because I'm not a magician. I can't do all this myself. The problem is with the way that I have my system set up right now, I leave the office, but I'm still getting inquiries. I'm still getting messages, and I'm getting more followers, which means more messages and more inquiries, and like, I get people commenting or like messaging me about stuff that I sold a long time ago. So like, I had 7 hours of screen time yesterday, and it's not me looking at my stats, it's me fucking answering messages and talking to people and like working. And now it's 7, and I'm still here because I had even more orders coming in, and I fucking can't walk out of here. Oh dear, look at this. Look at this. Should not be complaining. Like, I bet there's 50 packages in there at least. Oh God, all right, it is noon the next day. I have been, since I got here 2 hours ago, packing backup orders that I took from last night because My God, I had like 7 hours of screen time yesterday. I just lived on my phone doing orders. But hey, this is a good thing, because the opposite is I sit here doing nothing, bleeding money. And I don't want that to happen. I just realized I haven't even packed up eBay yet. So, yay, let's go do that. And Julia went on vacation, so I'm all by myself for the next like 2 weeks. Okay, the show resumes. Well, I haven't done this in a while. I've got some stuff going out on eBay, and because Juliet's on vacation right now, I'm the one responsible for shipping it out. So let's see what's going out. And admittedly, it is Monday. I came in here on Sunday because I had so much stuff going out on eBay. I'm not gonna cover that stuff, but this stuff sold last night. It's pretty interesting. So I have this like kind of whatever coin. I did a giant coin deal back in May, and I bought maybe 50 very inexpensive but graded coins, and they've been steadily trickling out. So I think I paid like $3 or $4 for this, and I sold it for $6, like I said. But I got eBay fees. I bet I made about $1. Profit's profit. But this stuff, this is where I cleaned up, and this is the kind of stuff I love getting. See, I pay metal prices when I get sterling silver. I have to. It's just the nature of my business. But if it's nice, like this is made in Italy, I wasn't gonna melt it down. It's a very lovely quality, cool texture, cool finish to it. I took one look at this. I knew I was gonna sell it on eBay. See, if I melted it down, you know, I paid, let's see what it weighs. It's 1/4 of an ounce, 0.26 of an ounce. I'm paying $18 an ounce today. And it might've been, let's call it 19 an ounce when I bought it. 19 times 0.26. So I paid $4.94 for this. I sold it for $45. I got $59 on this. It weighs 0.46. So I paid $8.74 for it, sold it for $59. Now I got eBay fees. I'm walking away with about $50. That is such a nice profit to be had on this. And then this thing, I got $8 for it. I paid 95 cents. So when it comes to jewelry, people always ask, like, what are you gonna do with it? Usually melt it down, but not always. And in this case, you know, it's better to keep it, especially if I don't have very much money into it. When it's gold jewelry, it gets expensive. If I sit on it for a while, it's a pain in the ass. Let me show you, I got some gold jewelry right here that I haven't melted down, and I should. When I get nice pieces like this, I do not want to destroy them. However, I have about $1,000 tied up into what's on my fingers, and I'm getting to a point where it's like, fuck, I might just hawk these. Like this marquee cut here, I got 300 bucks into this. I can't seem to find a buyer. There's a local guy who's getting married to a mail order bride and has been showing me the ring that he's buying her, and it's like $8,000, and this guy is not worth very much money, and I've been trying to talk him out of that and sell him this for $400. So I'm hoping he does it. The guy's just a lot of work. I'm not gonna hold my breath. But like, you know, this one I got, I think 250 into. I think I got like 150 into this one. Maybe a little bit less, maybe 100. I forget what I paid. I've had this one for a while. Or like this like amethyst piece. It's super nice. I don't want to destroy it because it's such a nice amethyst and it's a lovely piece. But god damn it, I can't find anyone to buy this for like, if I melted it down, it'd probably be about 100 bucks and I could scrap the stone for maybe 15 or 20. I am struggling to find a buyer at 140 for this thing. So it is going to be reaching the end of its line where, well, here's a fun analogy. The dog's been in the pound for quite a while. Nobody's adopting it. The dog's gonna have to go meet the smelter pretty soon. I have a remote buy here. Somebody sent me something, so let's open it up and see what it is and how much I could pay. And then I also bought some rings from Navarro Rings. I paid kind of a hefty premium for it because I want to do more business with Navarro Rings. I'm trying to look at artists who are doing silver, mainly because I'm looking for an artist to help me with Pawn Man rounds. It's something I'm starting to look into. Send me this. I'm gonna put this up on my community board. Cool, look at that. Oh, that's so cool. Super cool. And let's see what's in here. We have here 110 40% half dollars for $325. So I'm paying $295 per. And these are melting today. Silver's way down today. So as of right now, I'm gonna make 86 bucks on this bag, but if I wait for silver to go up, and again, I know it will, I'd be willing to bet money that it will, I could probably make in the neighborhood of 150. So I'm gonna just throw these in my safe and sit on them. Kobe. You know, because his talent's explosive. That's why I did that. And no reason else. No reason else. All right, I gotta do this kind of fast. It's no secret I'm filming this episode over now going on like almost 2 weeks. I did not film this deal, but this on my wrist is the second most expensive item that I have bought on my own. The most expensive item of jewelry. I paid $8,500 for this. Other people around town were bidding $8,000, so I had to beat it. I did not get the deal on camera, unfortunately, because it happened like I wasn't expecting it. It was like right in the morning, the other morning as I walked in here, and just look at this thing. Weighs 392 grams. It is 10 karat. It made me really nervous to buy, to be honest, because like if I make a mistake on this, then it won't put me under, but it'll really hurt losing $8,500. But I have confidence this is real. I did a magnet test to it. What you do is you take a magnet, and if it reacts at all, then it's probably not good because gold, silver don't react to magnets. Another thing that I did to make sure this was real, I sent this guy to another place and I was like, give me proof of their offer. And he showed me proof of that they offered him $8,000. I was like, well, I'll give you $8,500. I'll beat their offer. I bought another new painting. Isn't it downright terrifying? It reminds me of me. So I did extremely well in this note. I paid 10 bucks for it. It's worth well over 100, somewhere between 1 to 200. Unfortunately, because of the condition that it's in, the spot here, the tear, the fold, the red markings, it really subtracts from the value. If this was uncirculated, this would be worth thousands of dollars. So this is what is known as an educational note. The 1896 $1 silver certificate came with a red seal and blue lettering. It's called an educational note or an ed note, because this is Lady History educating the youth about America. She's pointing to the National Monument. We have the Constitution here. We have the names of presidents all around. This is a really, really cool note in my opinion. I think this is one of the coolest notes that the United States has ever made. There's some similarity between this and other pieces of currency. We see the torch here. Same torch on the back of the Mercury dime, the torch that Lady Liberty holds. And on the back of this note, we have George and Martha. Doesn't Martha look like a fun fuck? I'll have you know, I was quite exotic in the bedroom, thank you very much. It's true. She used to like to whip me and spank my buttocks and pull on my curls and take my wooden dentures and stick them in her... George! George, I say, you said you'd never say anything like that. Keep your mouth shut or I'll beat you within an inch of your life. God, I'm almost 32. Well, since I'm making no secret that this episode is taking place over the course of, this is my 5th day filming now. Let me show you where the bidding's at on that educational note. Now again, I paid $10 for it because I've been burned on notes in the past. I've overpaid for notes. In fact, it's kind of fitting that I sold this just last night. I paid $110 for this on the road. You guys remember Buy Trip Special number 2. I got $138, which after eBay fees, I'm about breaking even on it. So I would much rather pay, I would much rather underpay than overpay because I'm trying to run a business and I'm gonna fucking go out of business if that's the case. Admittedly, I way underpaid for this because, you know, I'm looking at this thing and the condition was so bad, I thought, well, best case scenario, it's worth like 100 bucks. Maybe 150, no more. So this is just after 1 day. $190.50 is the current bid. There's 20 bids. I've had numerous offers on TikTok for it, and it's also making my eBay page get pretty popular. I picked up like 20 new followers since I started advertising I had this for sale. It's not unreasonable to say that I'm basically producing softcore porn at this point because I completely fucked that lady on camera over the price of that note, and there was no nudity involved. And because it's been a week, this has just ended at auction. I paid $10 for it. I got $247.50 after eBay fees. It's slightly under 200. So I did really well on that note. And on that note, all right, let's get to the informative segment of this episode. So for this episode's informative segment, we are gonna be talking about the Panic of 1907 and the Federal Reserve Act. So I like the turn of the last century in terms of American history, maybe as being one of my favorite, if not my favorite time period. Well, World War II actually is my favorite time period, but this is a close second. You get, in the turn of the last century, the rise of the super rich, which, you know, as we've seen today, it's a problem that has only gotten worse. You get these people that have made these titans of industry that are basically modern, you know, oligarchs like we have in Russia. And you get these people that just amass these incredible fortunes and are so individually powerful They're like mini kings. A lot of these people made their money from, industry like steel or timber, but a lot of them made their money in the financial institutions. And this really is where you see a new kind of rich person. People like, we'll talk about JP Morgan coming onto the scene. So before we had a Federal Reserve, before we had a federal banking system, an entity, a government entity in control of the United States monetary system, in a lot of ways, it really was kind of like the Wild West. There wasn't a whole lot of regulation. People liked the idea of private ownership of banks, no government influence, no big government influence in this kind of sector. Free range, however, you started to have a lot of individuals that were behaving in nefarious ways, as people do when there's a lot of money involved. And you had people basically committing crimes before they were committing crimes. Things that were not recognized as being illegal then, but we look at it now and say like, oh my God. For a modern day example, I think what Elon Musk has been doing with cryptocurrency and manipulating the markets using his social media influence is not illegal yet, but it should be. And it seems like it should be. And there isn't a law for it yet, but it's like cyber crimes 30 years ago, 40 years ago. There wasn't a law for it. And then people had to do the deed to make stuff illegal. So what we're first gonna talk about is the panic of 1907 and what that created. Now, before you had the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, the federal institution for our monetary system, banks had a lot of private power and a lot of private influence and a lot of means to do things in privacy because they weren't on a national regulated stage. They were privately held and privately operated. They could do things that were pretty sketchy, and oftentimes they did. And one bank had the means to create an entire financial panic if it was mismanaged enough, over-leveraged enough, if enough dominoes fell in the wrong way. We'll talk about in a sec the creation of the Federal Reserve to help to eliminate that. So we actually tried to have some kind of a federal monetary system twice. We had the first Bank of the US from 1791 to 1811, which was interestingly advocated by Hamilton. That only lasted 20 years. Then from 1816 to 1836, we had the second United States Bank. Again, only lasted 20 years, didn't work, didn't last, people didn't like it, people didn't trust it. And there was this idea of the United States getting away from how England and the other old empires were doing things. We were a new empire. We didn't want to follow in their footsteps. We just didn't want to repeat those steps, so we stayed away from that kind of stuff, or at least we tried to, until the financial panic again of 1907. So what we have happening in October of 1907, for 3 weeks, you had a financial disaster take place. You have a group of wealthy bankers, private individuals, a lot of money, using their influence and their power in banks to try and corner the stock on the United Copper Company, and it failed. The banks and the people that lent their money and power and influence to this scheme, when it failed, suddenly had their necks out way further than they intended, and they all got their heads cut off. Basically, a lot of people lent money to the scheme, and when the scheme went bust, it created a domino ripple effect that created this fucking financial meltdown. The Knickerbocker Trust Company, the third largest trust in New York City, failed like almost overnight. There were runs on banks. It created a nationwide panic that started in New York. It quickly spread outward. It was the 9th largest crash in United States stock market history. It was a fucking mess. And JP Morgan had to individually, he had so much money, he had to individually step up and get some other wealthy friends to step up and throw their own money at this mess to stop the problem, because they all recognized that it was just the start of something even worse that could spell the end of all their fortune if they didn't immediately act to plug the dam and stop it. So they did. However, even after the end of this, at the end of October of 1907, once they finally had everything under control, it had created ripple effects that created other problems that would go on for years. It would haunt them. Everybody involved in this created such an absolute nightmare, and it beckoned the question, why don't we have a federal entity to stop something like this? Now, we did have something in place. We had an independent treasury system, but it was completely powerless to do anything. Individuals had to step up and do something about it. Had they not, again, it would have created who knows what kind of a mess. So this, in turn, creates the National Monetary Commission, which in 1913 turns into the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve Act, passed by President Woodrow Wilson in 1913, also known as the Owens-Glass Act or the Currency Act, was a federally created institution and system to rein in and control all money, all inflation, all debt, all spending, everything having to do with banks and lending, and the United States money supply was going to be controlled by this federal entity. So pre-1913, banks had the power to make their own notes, their own currency, but it did create some problems. Number one, a bank could be rife with corruption and you can use your imagination what would happen there. Other times, individual banks may not take each other's money. They may not be good across state lines. They generally were, but not always, and this obviously created some money supply issues. You also had the means to have panics happen very easily. Like I said, with the Panic of 1907, a couple greedy individuals created a national hysterical panic. One bank failing could cause ripple effects that could be seen throughout the country. And something like this couldn't happen. This is just too dangerous. In 1913, tariffs were reduced and the government suddenly needs a new way to start collecting some money. So what do? They start charging interest rates to banks when they create the Federal Reserve Bank. So what is the Federal Reserve Bank? Basically, it is the bank for all banks. It's not like the kind of bank where you can go in and speak to a teller and get your money. It is a federally controlled institution dividing the nation up into 12 jurisdictions. Each one of these jurisdictions has its own means to produce its own policies. They're, generally pretty aligned. Who controls this entity? The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve Bank. Each of them buys stock in it, and therefore they are able to borrow money and they control, they're in charge. They also get voting power to elect the president of the Federal Reserve Bank. Now, this Board of Governors is comprised of 7 individuals serving 14-year terms, and one of those 7 becomes the chairman of the Federal Reserve for a term of 4 years, appointed by the President of the US. And what do? What is their job? What is their primary job? It is to regulate the monetary supply. It is to combat inflation and deflation. It is to keep the economy healthy, keep the money supply moving, make sure that we don't have any corruption, any kind of issues like we had with the Panic of 1907 ever again, that we don't, stand in bread lines and suddenly all of our currency is worthless and we have to buy bread and wheelbarrows like the end of World War I Germany. And since all banks have to come to them, they are in charge of interest rates, raising them or lowering them. When a bank raises interest rates for other banks borrowing from them, that means the money that you are paying when you borrow from a bank, you're going to be paying a higher interest rate than they paid the Fed to get the money. And the reason for that is how they make money. This is what is known as the discount rate. So let's say the reserve rate is at 5%. That's what the Fed is lending to banks at. Then the bank might turn around and charge you 6% to borrow money from them. They're making 1% on lending out that money. I'm just using one example. Now, each bank has a reserve requirement. Imagine it like a casino. If everybody wanted to cash in their chips at a casino all at once, before this Federal Reserve requirement, obviously it would shut the bank down because they wouldn't have enough money. So each bank is required to have, enough chips. I think the rule is with the casino, you have to have as many chips. You have to have the amount of chips as you have in the vaults, or most of it. Maybe it's all of it, I don't know. But it's kind of the same thing with a Federal Reserve Bank or with a bank. It's got to have X amount of money in it to properly function. Now, banks, if they have a shortage, can lend each other money, what is known as the federal funds rate. Of course, the Federal Reserve Bank also controls the powers within this and who can borrow and lend what. Again, to keep away manipulation and other corrupting factors. Finally, what the Federal Reserve Act did was create the Federal Open Market Committee. And what this is 12 individuals buying and selling debt, government debt. If they sell the debt, that gets rid of the money supply, which lowers inflation. But if there's a slow economy, they buy the debt, this floods the market with money, and this can lead to things like increased employment. They meet 8 times a year. It's a pretty big deal. Everyone watches very closely when they do meet, like Wall Street, speculators, stuff like that. And to be on this committee, you either need to be on the board of governors of the Federal Reserve Bank, or you need to be one of the heads of one of the Federal Reserve Banks. And interestingly, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York gets a permanent seat because of his ties to Wall Street and the importance of Wall Street. It's deemed as being more important economically than any other region, so New York gets a permanent spot. And that, good viewers, is the story of how we got the Federal Reserve System, the Federal Reserve Act of 1919, and the Panic of 1907. Now, obviously, there's a lot of controversy about the Federal Reserve System, particularly in the wake of 2008 and all the corruption that was taking place. All that corruption that this entire fucking act was supposed to stop, and obviously it did not. If you have some severe opinions about the Federal Reserve one way or another, go ahead and post them in the comment section. I'm not going to talk any politics in this. I'm just going to outline the facts of the Federal Reserve System, how we got it, and what it does. Frankly, it's kind of dry, it's a little confusing, but it is interesting, it is important, and it does have a lot to do with what we talk about here on Pawn Man. And that's the magic of the Federal Reserve Act and the Panic of 1907. I honestly don't know where that voice came from. I just randomly started doing that, and now I think it's funny, and I have no explanation for it. Well, just like that is the end of the episode. If you guys like this video, be sure you give it a thumbs up. Hit that notification button so you know when new episodes of Pawn Man are coming out. Become a Pawn Man Patreon. Every dollar goes toward improving the show. Throw something in the comment section. Maybe I'll answer it in between the pawn. Follow me on social media, @EvanKale and @PawnMan. Head to Amazon, get my books, and I will see you guys back here for another episode of Pawn Man. Later, guys.